I'm ready to go.
Okay. Hello, Gabe. Do you go by Gabe or Gabriel or both?
Both. Cidman, Sid, either one.
Cidman, Sid. Okay, so lots of things. And I'm
Yes.
Jerry, and
Hello, Jerry.
we're neighbors, 2 houses apart, 1 house between us. And I
Yes.
wanted to interview Gabe because he had quite an experience with the coronavirus, and he's back home now, but it sure took a while, and it was very iffy. And he's going to do most of the details. I'm just going to ask questions mainly. So, Gabe, if you don't mind, when were you in, and when did you get out?
Well, I'll take a step back before I discuss the hospital part. I know people always ask me when did you first notice that something was wrong, and I remember I had to be maybe like a week before Easter Sunday. I was
Which, in this
working.
case, when was Easter? It was in April?
April 12th was Easter Sunday. That's when I went into the hospital. So maybe like April 5th, April 4th, around that time. I was working at home because now, at that point, everyone was already working from home if they could. And I remember it was like a Thursday afternoon, and right around the afternoon, around lunchtime, I started feeling like a little weird, like I was coming down with something. So I remember telling the guy who works for me, I said, Dan, I'm gonna take off, this afternoon. Let me know if you need anything, but I think I need to lie down for a little bit. And that's when I started feeling that fatigue, that body aches.
Yeah.
And then Friday, like this thing really takes a hold of you quickly. Friday, I believe I started coming down with a fever. And at that point, early on, it was about 101, 101.5, that kind of thing. By that weekend, I knew that I was sick. There was no doubt about it.
So
Yeah,
Thursday you noticed something, you weren't well, and
Thursday afternoon,
Thursday
yeah.
you were suspecting, this is not just.
Well, and I think at that point, every conversation, everything on the news was all COVID. So obviously, anytime you sneeze or coughed or whatever, people would jump to like, oh, I hope it's not COVID.
Because they had shut down school in March. Maybe 3 weeks before that, or something.
It was relatively all towards the end of March when everything started shutting down.
Yeah.
And I think my company, I had probably been home for a good 2 weeks at that point from working at home. So I had followed all the recommendations, avoid this, avoid that. At that point, the whole mask thing wasn't as big of a push. They were actually saying save the masks for first responders in hospitals. Don't use masks if you don't need them. That kind of stuff. So yeah, by
Well, hold on, because your connection.
Week, it was I called.
Wait a minute. Wait, Gabe. Gabe.
It feels a flu. Sure.
You're not even hearing me. Your connection was dropping off. I mean.
Here, I switched off. I turned off my Wi-Fi. I'm going on data. It should be a little better now.
Okay, so whatever you just said, I didn't hear it because you were frozen.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so
go ahead.
So then that weekend, I knew I was sick. I called my doctor on Monday, and I said I probably have the flu. I'm hoping it's the flu. I just have a fever and some body aches. And I said I don't have a cough yet. I don't have any breathing issues. So I was trying to be positive and say that it was the flu. So then I remember actually at the same time, my daughter was also getting sick. At this point, both of us had not had a fever.
Which daughter?
Anna, the oldest daughter, Anna. Okay. So we both got we were lucky. They squeezed us in for a COVID test on that Wednesday. So I remember we got the COVID test. And at that point, they were saying 3 days for a turnaround, but somehow we got lucky and they gave us the positive result on Thursday. So at that point, we knew we had COVID. I think on that Tuesday, I might have gone into that Tully Center in Stanford, that Media Care Center, for a flu test. They said they claim they have flu tests there. But when we went to see that doctor, he goes, "I'm not giving you the flu test. You don't have the flu. You have COVID." He's like, "No one has the flu test right now." So he goes, given your symptoms, given the way you look, you have COVID. So the tests are just more a formality. At that point, that doctor had said it. My doctor said you probably have COVID. So the test just confirmed it. So at that point, it was kind of doing what everyone else does when they have COVID at home. Take Tylenol for the fever, take whatever medicine you need to get comfortable, soups, a lot of fluids, lie on your side, lie on your stomach. So we tried to do all the things that people told you to do when you have COVID. Don't go to the ER unless you have shortness of breath. So that whole week, we were just staying home, resting, getting all the fluids, soups, all that kind of stuff. And then I guess it was by Saturday, my wife started saying that I looked really bad. And I
So
guess it was
Saturday, you're talking now about 9 days after the original
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, the days are a little fuzzy still in my
Sure.
head because it all kind of, it's kind of blurred. And, being in the middle of this whole stay at home thing, all the days kind of get crazy.
So you
But yeah,
knew you had it, but the question was, did you have it so bad that you better go in the hospital? And so
exactly.
up to that point, not necessarily, right? I mean,
Well,
when you look
well,
back at it, I got to break in occasionally. So when you look back at it,
yeah, go ahead.
do you wish, or would you even have been able to go in the hospital sooner? Would that have been a good thing?
Not at the way, because the worst thing I had midweek was the fever. My fevers at that point were going up to the 104.3, 104.4, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
But everything that I was told was, a fever is not enough to go into the hospital. It really is, and now I know why. But shortness of breath, which really means oxygen level, if that starts decreasing, then you're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
So that's when they want you to go to the hospital. So it was that Sunday when my wife really noticed that I was having trouble. She told me recently that when she saw me get out of bed and struggle to get out of bed and then go into the bathroom, which is only like, 30, 40 feet, that was a real struggle. And I came back and I was like huffing and puffing. She knew that, at that point I was in more trouble.
Did she know more than you did at that point? I mean, did she have better sense than you did, if you know what I mean?
I think she had a better sense of what I looked like. I think I was still thinking that I wasn't that bad, that I was still managing the fever, managing the symptoms, but she saw like a drastic dip in my oxygen level.
Yeah.
And she had me call the doctor, and it was the on-call doctor who called me back. And this I don't remember, which is kind of scary. She says that she had to kind of carry the conversation with the doctor for me because I wasn't able to hold the conversation at that point. So the doctor said, just go to the ER and have them assess you. Because at that point, I wasn't able to hold the conversation, apparently.
But you couldn't hold a conversation because you couldn't breathe? Or
Yeah. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't keep a sentence going without needing to stop and breathe.
Okay.
So at that point, we went to the ER.
That was Sunday, about what time?
It was Easter Sunday. It was in the afternoon, maybe 1, 2, something like that, 3 o'clock, right. like mid-afternoon.
Okay.
And that's when we went to the ER. And again, I was having trouble communicating at the ER, so my wife had to give them my name, the address, that kind of stuff. And based on how I looked, they immediately wheeled me into the ER, gave me a room. And at that point, my wife couldn't come in with me, so it was kind of a weird goodbye because it was all very, very abrupt.
Yeah.
So they kind of pushed her back, grabbed the wheelchair, and wheeled me into a room. And that's when they put oxygen on me. I think they put an IV right away as well. And they told me, yeah, you're being admitted. Like there was no chance. I know some people will go into the ER, get oxygen for a little bit, and then be sent home a few hours later.
Yeah.
But they told me from the beginning, you're going to be admitted. And they had an X-ray come into the room. I mean, now they bring X-rays into the room. They have this big machine that they wheel in. So they took an X-ray of my chest. They knew I was COVID positive, but once they saw my oxygen level, they knew that I was not in good shape. So
okay.
that was the beginning of the ordeal.
Okay, I want to push for a little bit of predictability. So I was going to ask you, when did you go in and how long were you in? That doesn't destroy the drama of this. It just lets us know, how long was it? We'll go back.
The window. Yep.
Yeah.
So I was in, April 12th, which is Easter Sunday. And I came out May 18th. So it was about 40 days in Greenwich Hospital.
Okay.
And then a week, and then from May 18th to May 27th, I believe, I was at a rehab center in Stanford on Long Ridge.
That's 9 days, but it seemed like longer. I don't know if it did to you,
Yeah,
but
it is. It
to
did.
me,
It
I
did.
thought,
It
is he
seemed a
ever
lot
coming
longer.
home? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was about 50 days total that I was away from home. It was
Yeah.
pretty insane.
Okay. So you want to go back to, we're back at the Sunday on Easter when you went in there.
Yeah, like, the way I describe it to people, the way to kind of visualize it, how people understand. Obviously, I knew what going to the ER meant in this new COVID world, right? That you don't want to get on the ventilator. Like that's the door you don't want to open. So and the nurses and the doctors would say that we don't want you on a ventilator. We want you to get better and not have to go on a ventilator. So
Now,
that's what everyone.
does going on the ventilator, besides the fact that it's a very bad sign, like you're really in trouble, but does it also do something to you that's bad? I mean, it does something to, like, save your life, but does it do something to your system that is not good?
Well, the amount of drugs that they have to give you to knock you out is bad, and then there's no telling how long you have to be on it. Right? There's no clock. It's whenever your body, either recovers or gives up. That
Okay.
really is the only outcome, as far as I know.
Okay. So
So
you and the nurses and the doctors were hoping you wouldn't go on.
yes,
Okay.
and the best way I describe it, and I going back to my Navajo history class in college, to me it was like a death march. The minute that they wheeled me into that room in the ER, I knew my goal was to not get to the ventilator. But every day that I was in the hospital, every day that something bad happened, every day that I didn't get better, I was getting closer and closer to the ventilator.
And so was your condition getting worse each day, or was it just not improving?
It was getting worse, and I'll give you an example. And this is kind of, I know one of your questions was about like any kind of worries or concerns. There was, and now I know more what they were, but I think it had to be the second day I was in the so I was in the ER. No, I was given a room. So I was only in the ER that Sunday. They moved me to a room. I still wasn't in the ICU. It was just the regular hospital room. I was definitely still labeled COVID. I was COVID, so every doctor had to have the full PPE, and so they have this little machine on your finger that monitors your heart rate and your oxygen level. That's like the main thing they use to monitor you in real time. So there's some kind of screen they have at the nurse's station, and it has those measurements. So I remember a nurse came in, and at that point I think I only had I forgot what they call it, but it's the oxygen through your nose. It's like a little tube and that goes around your face. And we've all seen it.
Sure.
So I had that, and she came in, and I think either she hit something or she called someone and said code blue, and I didn't know what that meant. And all of a sudden, it had to be like 6, 7 people rush into my bed out of nowhere. Like it wasn't even a delay. It was like within seconds. They rush in. Don't talk to me. Don't say hi. I'm Dr. Smith or whatever. They just start pulling my gown apart at the top and start putting on these little clips of, I guess, from their machines. And they start talking to the nurse, asking all these questions. Start taking my blood pressure, my temperature, all this stuff. They start taking all my vitals. And then they started kind of giving the nurse orders to increase this, increase that, give them this, give them that. And it was kind of scary, to be honest with you, because
Sure.
I go from talking to one nurse, and the next thing I know, I got a team, like a SWAT team coming in and doing stuff. So I knew I wasn't getting, that's not a good sign.
Right.
So I knew that wasn't good.
What day was that? You went in Sunday.
It had to be like a Tuesday, I would say.
Okay.
And again, this is where it gets a little blurry. Actually, if I pull up a calendar, if you give me a second, I can try to give you better dates. So I kind of know when I went into the ventilator. April. Give me a second. That's not working. But anyway, yeah. So it was a couple of days, and then that happened again the following day. Again, same scenario. A nurse comes in. They must have seen something on their monitor. She again calls this code blue signal. Again, so they come in again, do the whole thing. Now I kind of expected it, but still very scary because they don't really talk to you. And at that point, they said I needed more oxygen. So they removed the single hose oxygen thing and gave me a full mouth one that covers your nose and your mouth. And from my understanding, with the hose, you only get 6, I think it's milliliters of oxygen. I'm not sure what the measurement is, but 6 units of oxygen. But with the full mouth one, you get up to 15 max. So I think they started me like at 10 first. And then I went to the max. Then I think the following day, same thing happened. And I think a more senior doctor came with them the third time and said, no, give them both oxygen. So I had the nose at full 6 units and the mouth one at full 15 units. So I was getting 21 units of oxygen, and my body still wasn't, it wasn't getting better. I wasn't getting enough oxygen still. So at that point, they said, we're going to move you to the ICU so we can better monitor you. And that to me was the fork in the road where I knew I'm going the wrong way.
Mission has not been accomplished, and as you say, you're going the wrong way. Okay, a technical